Recyclico, making lithium-ion last forever. Recyclico's patented recycling process achieves up to 100% recovery of battery metals from lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, and aluminum. Recyclico Battery Materials Incorporated trades on the TSX Venture AMY, on the OTCQB AMYZF, and Frankfurt ID4. For more information, visit recyclicode.com or phone us at 778-574-4444. Recyclico, making lithium-ion last forever.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. He's speaking to us from South Florida. Welcome back to the show.
Lovely place, Jim, South Florida. Thanks for inviting me on. Always a pleasure.
Gold, well, remember about 12 years ago they were calling gold nothing but a pretty rock? Is it just a pretty rock anymore?
No, I wonder who they are. We in the gold world, not that I'm so much in it, but we refer to those people as they're crazy, pretty rock. But I think they're the same ones who would gladly trade you their gold for your Bitcoin.
And of course, there's so much backing Bitcoin, right? All those assets, property.
Yeah, I think in the whole Bitcoin world, everybody's holdings having a total intrinsic value of zero. Although I think we've talked about that. I can jack my own estimate of Bitcoin's value up to about $2.30 based on the fact that it does serve a purpose. The blockchain can record a transaction securely. Not that anyone's buying anything with Bitcoin. You know, it's like those trading sardines. Bitcoin and cryptos is something you speculate with rather than buy stuff with.
Now, getting back to gold, this upwards trend, is this going to stabilize or does it have lots of wiggle room to go higher?
This is a real deal here. We knew that we were no longer in Kansas back in early March. Gold broke out of a consolidation, and it's been going up pretty good since. I use what I call hidden pivot resistances, and depending on how daunting the resistance and how easily the buyers blow through them, the more bullish I get. So I've been using a target of 25.14 for the COMEX, that would be June gold. And we've certainly made a lot of headway toward it. High this morning, actually, it kind of backed off, but gold hit higher 24.12, just beneath yesterday's peak at 24.15. So just that little bit of movement has convinced me that my target there at 25.14 will actually be reached. And silver is targeted. This is the May COMEX contract. It's targeted on $30.08, currently trading $28.40. So we've got a bit of room to move there. And if gold and silver hit those targets respectively at the same time, ordinarily I'd say, boy, that's it. You're going to get short up there. And I think there will be a tradable pullback from those numbers, give or take a dollar maybe, in gold and a few dimes in silver. But if the pullback is shallow and just kind of whips around and blows right through these pivots, then I think we can adjust our aspirational focus for bullion to, respectively, it would be $50 for silver and $3,000 for gold. Those aren't hidden pivot targets. They're just kind of psychological, what used to be pie in the sky numbers, but they'll no longer be pie in the sky.
As we know, gold and silver have been manipulated for decades to keep the prices down. Has that manipulation stopped, or is it just not working anymore?
Oh, it works, but it's just not working quite as well. You know, the other day, they dropped a bomb. Silver and gold were both rip-roaring, and they turned around so fast. Gold had $100. It was $100 swoon, actually, and silver correspondingly. But and those were essentially the same criminal forces that are arrayed against gold and silver. they have a bit of an advantage because they can not only borrow bullion from the central bank or from the U.S. I'm sorry, I sometimes confuse the two, but they can borrow bullion bankers for like next to nothing and lend it out. That's what you call a carry trade. So carry trading's been very easy in gold, and of course they've got the additional help of a paper market in gold, so they can lay on as much paper, gold, and silver as they want till the cows come home. But sooner or later the cows do come home, and they're stuck. They're thinking, well, we better get them back in. You know, all these paper obligations imply a liability for our short positions in bullion. So they pull the plug, and gold and silver meet what my subscribers refer to as Mr. Slammy. So Mr. Slammy came out last week with great force, but it just didn't hold the price down for long. You know, the selling took place on Friday, the 12th of April, continued into Monday, and we're making a pretty good recovery from there. We still haven't gotten above Friday's highs, but I expect we will.
The central banks around the world are snapping up gold. Do they see something that people didn't in the past?
Yeah, they see their own balance sheet, and they know that they've been very diligently working to blow out the money supply to cheapen the value of our fiat money. And of course, they know, and some governments know it with a vengeance, the Chinese government for one, that gold is real money. So the central banks, occasionally the British probably have the worst track record for trying to prove the point that gold is really worthless, and you'd have to be a fool to desire it. So just to make that point, Britain it's had a couple of dabblings in the past where they managed to sell gold at historical lows, and you can bet that if the top ever comes, maybe not, but they'll be buying gold hand over fist. But generally, the central banks are pretty knowledgeable about bullion, and you know, they trade it with that knowledge.
Is there any gold in Fort Knox?
I think so. I'm just taking that on good faith from I think it was Tom Luongo. He's an optimist about a whole bunch of things, and one of them is I think he takes it as a given that the gold is actually there in Fort Knox, and he takes it a step further. Actually, he thinks that all of the tightening that Powell is doing is very deliberately trying to force certain rigor on fiscal spending everywhere. And this is really hitting home in Europe. You know, Europe and I guess the globalists are so used to having an infinite supply of digital dollars that when Powell tightens and makes those dollars scarcer, it really puts a lot of pressure on Europe. And you could say the same thing about the U.S. As Powell pushes interest rates higher, it works its own limits on congressional spending. You know, everybody, cheap dollars, artificially low interest rates have made it possible for all agencies of government to spend like the proverbial drunken sailor. So Powell is tightening the screws, and it's starting to work. And he thinks that the positive effect that will have on the price of gold will cause gold to appreciate in such a way that just selling a hoard of 8 million, what is it? Trying to remember the amount of gold we officially hold, but we'd sell off about a third of it just to pay for the baby boomers' Medicare and Social Security. And you can bet I'm all for that.
Now, how come our governments on this side of the pond haven't been as smart as they were in Norway, where they took their oil revenues and put it into their pension fund, and now individuals in Norway have $1 million or more backing each person? They're not running huge deficits. They invested that money. I think that's great, really. Smart guys. I mean, I think they're compadres in Iceland they went the other way. You know, they got involved in a lot of derivative instruments and sort of out of their depth, which is fishing.
and of course they took a major financial hit, and Norway could wind up in the same boat really by investing in the wrong things. But it's tempting to put it in financial instruments. But the irony is that the best place Norway could put the money would probably be in crude oil reserves or something like that.
Now, going on with gold, 9 suspects have been arrested in the Toronto Pearson Airport $20 million gold heist a year ago. Police have recovered just $90,000 of that gold. So no matter what, unless they find this gold, these people sitting in jail for 9-10 years, if they get that, because in Canada we give notoriously low jail sentences, would that have been a worthwhile investment to know you've got 9 people, you got $1 million in gold sitting somewhere for you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they should watch the Goodfellas, the movie where there's the big airport heist, and De Niro tells all the guys who are in on the heist, just don't go out and buy fur coats for the ladies
and Cadillacs.
Cadillacs for the guys. And sure enough, they went out and bought fur coats and Cadillacs, and then they were all dead.
Yeah. Well, if it's going to be interesting if they ever do find out where that gold is, because I remember covering a bank heist trial where the guy had, I don't know, $200,000 or whatever. And we know it's buried along railway tracks somewhere. That came out at the trial. And the guy says, well, I've discovered Jesus. Please give me a break at sentencing. And the judge said, I'd rather discover where the money is.
Uh-huh.
But again, he got 9 years in jail and he's let out. And who knows if he's spending that money right now.
Huh. Well, they the U.S. is pretty easy on white-collar criminals, too, unless you're Martha Stewart, a really nefarious criminal. Then they throw the book at you for nothing, really. But I don't know. As far as where the gold is going, maybe they should try the purloin letter trick and hide it in an old Spanish galleon.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, is crude going to be a huge climber this summer?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, it's like everybody's still watching the open market committee announcements where when are they going to pivot? When are they going to pivot? And the expectation all along has been we'll pivot when interest rates when inflation kind of tapers off, when it shows signs of. But what it's showing signs of now is going into the wild blue yonder. We've got everything in the world, everything you could buy, goods or services, is tied to the price of energy in some way. So we've got crude. It didn't quite make my 88 target. That's basis the May NYMEX contract. But I think it'll be back again. And I don't know which criminal or quasi-criminal forces have beaten down the price of crude over the last 3 or 4 days. But at $88, it's really a threat to hit 100. And if it hits 100, there's not going to be any. In theory, we would not have much pivoting. But we keep adjusting the pivoting expectation, not to reality, but to the hope that hope itself will triumph. And regardless, even if Powell doesn't have those excuses anymore for staying, for loosening, even without the excuses. In other words, even with plenty of inflation, we're going to be loosening anyway because the economy will be reflecting more reality rather than whatever it's reflecting now, employment numbers or something. But the 3% GDP growth that's claimed looks like it's going to accelerate. But who knows what that means really when they're talking about 5% GDP growth? Does that mean the economy is rip-roaring along? If you just ask someone who's in the economy, they'll say, no, it doesn't seem to mean that. working as hard as ever just to stay in place.
Again, U.S. Unemployment numbers look impressive, 3.1% or 3.3% compared to Canada's 6.1%. But both of them are flawed statistics in the fact that once you've gone a certain period, so many months, your EI runs out, and then officially you're no longer unemployed.
Yeah, then nothing could be more like bull twaddle than employment numbers. It's like, who the hell knows what they mean? And when all those people that are sleeping under the highway overpasses in San Francisco, when they turn up at Men's Warehouse or whatever, they buy suits and ties and start going to work every day, then I'll start believing these job numbers.
Of course, the U.S. still has a labor shortage. Canada, not so much when you're at 6.1%. If you don't accept that minimum wage job, you're cut off.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where the labor shortage is coming from unless it's cocktail waitresses and restaurants. That's what America's busy doing. We eat out and we drink. And so I don't know. I don't really know where the demand is coming from. It's, well, obviously healthcare, because there's so many dollars hard at work in healthcare that if you're an entrepreneur, you'll figure out a way to be a healthcare provider. But who knows what those job numbers mean?
Well, there is a labor shortage in the service industry. My wife was at a convention in Seattle. Unless you're checking out the next day, no, they didn't make up the bed for 4 days. They didn't come in to check on stuff. They only had a salad bar for lunch because they didn't have the personnel to cut up the veggies and fruits for the salad bar. So in the low-paying service industries, yeah, there's a shortage, but I think it's high tech. Still, even with AI, they want real talented human brains running things. And what's your opinion of AI? Is it going to be really the game changer so many people believe it's going to be?
AI is the biggest crock really I've seen in my life. And, there's always some story out there that will sort of give you an infinite horizon for the inflation of stock prices and IPO deals and all that. So AI is it. And as far as I'm concerned, AI is what you interact with when autocorrect is working on your phone. So, the joke about a priest, a minister, and a rabbit walk into a bar, and the bartender says, geez, said rabbit, how did you get here? And he said, spell check. So that's AI. And if they can't get AI to the point where it will deliver, it will transpose a simple sentence into something that's correct, and instead of typing out the word comma and stuff like that, when it does that, you think the people who did the algorithms created the algorithms for autocorrect, they're blithering idiots. So, AI, if it's going to make a difference, really, it's going to mean everybody's going to get fired. Everybody who's doing some sort of work that, like if it were done in some completely mediocre way or continuing how it's done now, no one would notice. So we get rid of a lot of lawyers and legal boilerplate, and but you can see in other areas, and here we've got jobs. But where's the demand really? You go into a McDonald's now, and McDonald's is very clever about these things, but it's found out a way to run a McDonald's with a drive-through with like 2 employees. So you're up there spending 15 minutes trying to figure out how to get a little extra mustard on your McDouble burger, and there's nobody behind the counter. And I don't know. So that to me is America. We're replacing AI, the primary driver of AI. Wherever you see AI at work, it's to supplant human inputs. And unfortunately, that's occurring even in medicine. We've got this, ain't it great, telemedicine these days, where you can call your doctor, and through the miracles of video images, he can tell you what ails you, or at least he can put all your symptoms into the AI infundibulator, and it spits out whatever your condition is, the diagnosis and the course of therapy or action. So everywhere you look, AI is really just kind of Charles Hugh Smith uses this word. It's just mediocrizing everything. So that's the best AI can deliver. And, I like to think I won't get replaced by AI, but whether if I were to be replaced and someone were to, an AI machine would spit out an essay on deflation, whether anybody would notice that it was not my style.
Well, unless you're intelligent, you don't notice AI-generated stuff, but I can tell an AI-generated story because it lacks superlatives, and it doesn't describe anything that would evoke emotion. It hasn't caught on to that yet.
Right.
And it just keeps repeating the same facts over and over and over again, but not giving you more detail as it would if a human was writing in pyramid style. A style which, by the way, I abhor. Tell me what the story's about up front and why it was big. It was really big. It was really, really big. It was bigger than really, really big. Well, okay. Why didn't you just say that right at the start?
Well, an AI world is really like the world that was envisioned in the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Pick your version, the newer one with Donald Sutherland. But everybody's kind of walking around zombified, but nobody really knows. When you're one of the zombies, you don't really recognize it. When you finally succumbed, the world seems normal, and I think that's where the AI would eventually take us.
Well, also, if AI replaces all the humans, will humans just not exist anymore? And what if AI is told, okay, make sure there's enough food for humanity, and its solution is to get rid of 2/3 of humanity?
Yeah, or as the Hollywood screenwriter figured out, we've got the Soylent Green solution. Plenty of food out there. When you're thinking the way you have to, good AI has to really think the way a cannibal thinks.
A very interesting movie from the early 1970s. People should check it out. They don't know what Soylent Green is.
Well, there were, all the sci-fi back there was it was predictive of something, but I guess the ones I grew up on, the 1950s, were a lot of them had to do with your mind was going to get possessed, and of course if you look at it in allegorical terms, we were talking about communism. We were all going to we were going to be we were going to get socialized and it was kind of an alien mind. Well, I won't use that term really on your family show, but we're all getting our minds taken over.
Rick, what's going to happen on the uranium front? Are we going to start building more nuclear reactors?
Well, he who asked that question has to sort of envision a nuclear future. And I guess the most bullish news I think I've come across recently was that, was it Iceland or Finland? Somebody hollowed out a subterranean cave so deep, so solid that it really does kind of meet the storage needs.
It's Finland.
Spent uranium. Finland, okay. So Finland has a good nuclear waste storage. It's not a concept. It actually exists, and they encase the radioactive material in some sort of clay and copper and this and that. So if a European country is thinking seriously about a nuclear future, then you know that it's going to catch on. So it's really the only thing that can meet our energy needs in a reasonable period of time. If we're going to try to change the allocation pie so that the fossil fuels no longer take the lion's share, we're never going to bring it around with solar and wind power, but nuclear has the capability to change the equation somewhat. So I guess, but there's a long lead time there. So, and even as the story starts percolating just a little bit, we get some of these uranium stocks like Cameco go nuts, which it did, but it's come down pretty hard in the last week or so. So yeah, I think the uranium story is a good one, but you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself there, investing in the various companies that know how to dig it out of the ground and process it.
Well, we're going to need electricity from somewhere. Washington State has already declared a drought emergency because their mountain snowpack was so low. The BC snowpack, again, was low this year. BC relies on hydro. Apparently, we're going to have to import power into British Columbia, a province that's mostly mountains and icy mountaintops, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting. That the hydroelectric sources, I'm not going to say they're drying up, but they are endangered in some places. I didn't realize that British Columbia was one of them. I think of that as kind of just a rainy place, well watered.
Well, our summers are hotter and drier, and they soak up a lot of the water that came down in the winter. But again, not as much snow and rain as in the past.
Uh-huh. Well, that seems to be true in so many places, certainly the American Southwest, and even Florida, where I'm living now, gets its occasional droughts. Although, if you've seen a Florida summer storm or a storm during the middle of the rainy season, comes down so hard, you're thinking, geez, can any plant need this much water? So, but everything blooms here.
Rick, always fun chatting with you.
Been very delightful down here in Florida. All the snowbirds are starting to leave for the Northeast, where if you've been in New York City in the middle of August, you realize that it actually is as hot there as it is down in Florida. But somehow in Florida, the heat seems more relentless. Even in New York, the hot weather breaks occasionally, and you have a short period of relief, but not down here.
Yeah, but nobody rages about the beaches of New York City.
New York City. I'm not trying to think. Looking for a beach there, and I guess you got to go to Coney Island. I guess
that's it.
Or out to the Hamptons.
Rick, thanks again.
Thank you, Jim. I had a nice chat today, and look forward to our next.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. If you have any questions for Rick or for any of our guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Find us on X @HowStreet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.